Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Yeah, this time.
This time we're diving into rest.
Ooh, that sounds very restful.
We could all use a little bit more rest.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at some teachings from Michael Layden,
Yes,
and this is from his series, Seeking Wholeness Through Unchained Disciples.
it is.
And this ministry is really focused on helping people achieve mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
Yes, and this particular session that we're going to be looking at is all about obtaining rest,
That's right.
which is so important.
So important.
And you know what I think is so interesting about the way that Layden starts this out is that he doesn't actually start with scripture.
Oh, interesting.
He starts with a real-life phenomenon that, grabs your attention.
Okay.
Did you know that car crashes and heart attacks actually spike the Monday after daylight saving time?
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's all because of sleep deprivation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just losing that 1 hour of sleep can really mess with your physical and your mental well-being.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Layden even brings up Jordan Peterson,
Oh, wow.
who's a clinical psychologist,
Yeah.
who has said that it's nearly impossible to treat depression in somebody who has an irregular sleep cycle.
Oh, wow. That's a powerful statement.
It is.
So really emphasizing how important rest is just on a purely physical level.
Yes, definitely.
And then Linden takes it from there to this deeper level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He says that Jesus offered rest for our souls, not just our bodies.
That's right.
So that kind of gets us thinking about, what is rest right?
Yeah.
When you think about the word Sabbath,
Yeah.
what comes to your mind?
Absolutely. And it's really interesting how he goes into the Jewish Sabbath.
Yeah.
And how it has evolved in Christian practice. He even talks about Seventh-day Adventists who observe the Sabbath on Saturday.
Right.
And they actually live an average of 10 years longer than the general population.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's a pretty significant difference.
Yeah. Is that because of Sabbath?
Well, Layden doesn't explicitly come out and say that.
Okay.
But he does suggest that it could definitely be a contributing factor.
Wow.
The emphasis on rest could be playing a role there.
Interesting.
He analyzes the Old Testament Sabbath as a shadow of a future, more profound rest.
Okay.
So like how the tabernacle foreshadowed elements of heaven.
I see. So the Sabbath is kind of pointing towards something even bigger.
Exactly.
Right.
And that really ties into the core message of the New Testament.
Okay.
Layden describes it as finding rest from the work of striving for salvation.
I see.
Finding peace in the assurance of Christ's sacrifice.
So it's not about earning our rest, but accepting it as a gift.
Precisely.
That's good.
And to further illustrate the need for rest,
Okay.
even for high performers, Layden uses the sports analogy.
Oh, I like those.
Yeah.
Okay.
He talks about star basketball players who maybe want to stay in the game the whole time, but the coach knows
They got to rest.
they need a break
Yeah.
for the good of the team and the good of their own health.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So God's kind of like our coach being like, hey, you need to rest.
That's right.
It's for your good,
Yeah.
both physically and spiritually.
Exactly. And you can apply this to all areas of life,
Yeah.
not just the spiritual.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Layden goes on to define 7 different types of rest.
Yes, she does.
So we'll start with the most obvious one.
Okay.
Physical rest.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes the importance of sleep hygiene
Mm-hmm.
and addressing physical discomforts promptly
Yeah.
instead of pushing through
Right.
until you just totally crash and burn.
Which we've all done.
Oh, yeah. Countless times I've woken up on the couch after I thought I could just power through and I fell asleep sitting up,
Oh, yeah.
But Layden says even plants need rest.
That's true.
Right.
Think about how
Yeah.
some plants thrive at night.
Oh.
And some plants close up during the day to conserve energy.
That's true. It's like a natural rhythm built into creation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after physical rest,
Yes.
he talks about mental rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is where he really zeroes in on this concept of decision fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
And he argues that simplifying your routines can actually free up so much mental space
Yeah.
for more important choices.
Yeah.
So even something as basic as picking out your clothes the night before.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
meal prepping for
Yeah.
the week.
Absolutely, things like that.
Yeah, just taking away those small decisions can really help.
And there's actually some evidence for this.
Yeah.
Like high achievers,
Mm-hmm.
like Steve Jobs
Yeah.
and Mark Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
They famously wore the same outfit every day
They did.
just to minimize those decisions.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but
Oh, yeah.
have you ever had that moment where you walk into a room and you're like, why am I here?
Yes.
Like total mental rest deficit?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so then after physical and mental rest, Ledden distinguishes between exhaustion from experiencing intense emotions and exhaustion from suppressing them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he gives the example of nurses
who
like maintain their composure at work
Right.
when they're dealing with really difficult situations.
Yeah.
But then they go home
Yeah.
and release all those pent-up emotions.
So they're like saving up all that emotional energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that actually ties into,
Fascinating.
yeah, it ties into what they call code switching,
Mm-hmm.
where people kind of adjust their behavior and emotional expression
Right.
depending on the social context.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so even suppressing your emotions
Mm-hmm.
for good reasons can still be draining.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that leads us to the next type of rest,
Go away.
social rest.
Okay, social rest.
Yeah, he talks about setting boundaries with draining people
Okay.
and really seeking out those who are supportive and encouraging. He even shared this funny story.
Oh, I love his stories.
Yeah, about this coworker
Okay.
who was always like super agreeable at work, never caused any drama or anything.
Right.
But Lieden overheard her one day on the phone with her husband.
Uh-oh.
And let's just say, she was not
so agreeable.
Not so agreeable.
Wow.
It just highlighted how much energy we expend on maintaining a certain persona in social settings.
That's so true. You know, it makes you think about the hidden costs of all those social interactions.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to step back and recharge, even from positive social situations.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, social rest.
Yes.
And then Layden talks about creative rest.
Yes.
What is that?
He says that involves finding sources of inspiration and awe.
Okay.
Whether that's nature, music, art.
Okay.
He even mentions the color green.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all about filling the well.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. And he emphasizes the importance of seeking out excellence in your field.
Okay.
If you're a musician, you listen to inspiring music.
Yeah.
If you're a writer,
you read
amazing books.
Good books.
So on and so forth.
Makes sense.
Speaking of creative pursuits.
Yeah.
Did you know that Lieden was in a rap group in high school?
No, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. There are some stories from those days.
We'll have to get him to share those sometime.
Yes.
That would be great.
Okay, so we've got physical, mental, emotional, social, creative.
Yeah. Right.
What else could there be?
Yeah, what other kinds of rest are there?
Sensory rest.
Okay, sensory rest.
He talks about how constant stimulation from screens, noise, artificial light, it can just overload us.
That's true.
Fuel anxiety.
Like our senses are on overdrive all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he even brings up this question about whether these open plan offices, which are so popular these days, are they actually hindering productivity?
That's a good point.
Because of all that constant activity and distraction?
That's interesting.
Yeah, so maybe a little peace and quiet is actually better for productivity.
You would think so.
Layden certainly thinks so.
Okay.
He suggests practical things like turning off the radio during your commute.
Oh, yeah.
Using your phone's do not disturb mode.
Those are good.
Little things like that.
I like it.
And then finally,
okay,
the heart of it all.
Well, this is the big one.
Spiritual rest.
Spiritual rest. Okay.
Yeah. Layden really stresses the importance of a genuine connection with God.
Yeah.
Rather than just going through religious motions or striving to earn his favor.
It's about being not doing right.
Exactly. He reminds us that even pastors and devoted volunteers can experience spiritual burnout.
Oh, wow.
So it's not about how much you do for God. It's about the state of your heart.
That's good.
And then he ends with this really powerful point about finding a peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances. So true.
A peace that allows you to stay grounded amidst the chaos of the world.
That's really good.
He uses this analogy.
I love his analogies.
Yeah, he talks about a ship.
Okay.
And he says, the problem isn't the ship being in the water.
Right.
It's when the water gets inside the ship.
Oh.
And it capsizes.
Oh, I see what he's saying.
It's a really great image.
Yeah.
For how our inner state that sense of spiritual rest
Right.
shouldn't be constantly rocked by the
Did
waves
you on your shirt?
of external circumstance.
That's really good.
So we've covered all 7.
We have.
Physical, mental, emotional, social, creative, sensory, spiritual.
He covers a lot of ground in this session.
He does. He really provides a comprehensive look at this really crucial aspect of a whole and healthy life.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of what rest truly means.
Yes.
But before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I'm wondering, how do we actually cultivate?
Yeah, that's a great question. These different types of rest in our daily lives.
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand them conceptually,
Right.
but putting them into the practice can be a whole other challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, fortunately, Layden doesn't just leave us with these concepts.
Oh, good.
He offers some practical advice
Oh, good.
and strategies for incorporating them into our daily lives.
Okay, good. Because I need that.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore
Okay.
in our final part.
Okay, so let's talk strategy.
Let's do it.
How do we actually, get more rest?
Yeah. Well, the first thing Layden says is that we need to recognize when we're starting to feel depleted in these areas.
Okay.
And it can show up in different ways. Fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating, even physical symptoms like headaches or changes in appetite.
So it's like our bodies and minds are trying to tell us something,
Yes.
but we're not listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Layden encourages us to become more self-aware.
Okay.
Pay attention to those subtle signals.
So it's like learning a new language almost. Tuning into the whispers before they become shouts.
Right.
Okay. So once we start to recognize those signals,
Yes.
what do we do?
Well, Layden outlines some strategies for each type of rest.
Okay, so let's break it down type by type.
Okay.
What are some practical tips for getting more physical rest?
Well, Layden recommends establishing a consistent sleep routine, going to bed and waking up around the same time every day, even on the weekends.
Even on the weekends, sorry.
Create a conducive sleep environment.
Okay.
Make sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, cool.
Right.
And of course, ditch those screens at least an hour before bed.
Yeah, that blue light, it's a killer.
It is.
Okay, that's physical rest. What about mental rest? What are some ways we can kind of declutter our minds and reduce that decision fatigue?
Layden talks about the power of decluttering, both physically and mentally. So have you been putting off tackling that pile of papers on your desk?
Oh,
maybe it's time to clear it off.
That's a good point.
Create a sense of order. It's not just physical clutter. Clearing out your inbox. Simplifying your to-do list can also help.
Yeah, I definitely need to work on that one.
It never ends, does it?
Never-ending to-do list.
Layden also suggests setting realistic goals and learning to say no more often. So you avoid overcommitting.
That's good.
Which can lead to mental fatigue.
Right.
And remember his point about establishing routines. To minimize decision fatigue.
Yeah, like meal prepping.
Exactly. Maybe meal prepping on Sundays. So you don't have to think about what to cook every night.
Oh, that's a good one.
Choose your outfits for the week ahead of time.
Like Steve Jobs.
Like Steve Jobs.
I love it.
All right, so what about emotional rest?
Emotional rest. Yeah. How do we create space to process our emotions in a healthy way?
Layden emphasizes healthy emotional expression. It's not about bottling things up or pretending everything's fine. He suggests finding healthy outlets for processing emotions, whether that's journaling, talking to a therapist. Even just venting to a trusted friend.
It's so important to have those people in your life who you can be real with.
It is.
Yeah.
And remember Leon's point about code switching.
Yeah.
He encourages us to create spaces where we can truly be ourselves. Without the pressure of performing or masking our emotions.
I think that is so important, especially in today's world. Where we're often bombarded with messages about who we should be. So true.
Okay, moving on to social rest.
Social rest. Okay.
Layden encourages us to be intentional about our social interactions.
So who are we spending time with?
Exactly. Are you spending time with people who energize you or drain you?
That's a really good question. It's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and not really even realize who's adding to our lives and who's taking away.
That's true.
Yeah.
She says to prioritize time with loved ones and create boundaries with people who consistently leave you feeling depleted.
Okay, that's good.
And if you're somebody who thrives in smaller groups or solitude,
Yeah.
finding those environments
Right.
where you feel a sense of belonging and inclusion.
It's not just about avoiding negative people,
Right.
but also seeking out those who really support and encourage us.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's social rest. What about creative rest?
Creative rest is all about finding those activities that spark joy and inspiration.
Okay.
Things that have nothing to do with work or productivity.
Like filling the well.
Filling the well.
Okay.
It could be anything from spending time in nature to listening to music, reading a novel, taking a pottery class.
It's about giving ourselves permission to play,
Yes.
to explore, without any pressure to produce.
Exactly.
I like that.
And don't forget his point about exposing yourself to excellence in your field.
Right.
If you're a writer, read books by authors you admire.
Yes.
Musician, listen to music that moves you.
Surround yourself with inspiration.
Yes.
That's good.
He even suggests creating a physical space dedicated to creativity.
Okay.
So like a corner in your home where you can write or paint, or just let your mind wander.
I like that.
All right, sensory rest.
Sensory rest, yeah.
Sure.
Minimizing that overload.
Minimizing the overload.
Okay.
He talks about being mindful of your screen time, dimming the lights in the evening, creating calming rituals.
Oh, yeah.
To unwind before bed.
I love his suggestion of like a technology-free day each week.
Oh, yeah.
No phone, no computer, no TV.
It sounds radical.
It does sound radical.
And I bet it would be so restorative.
I think so, too.
All right, and finally,
the big one.
Spiritual rest.
Spiritual rest.
Layden emphasizes the importance of cultivating a deep and personal relationship with God.
Okay.
He talks about spending time in prayer and meditation, reading scripture, engaging in activities that nourish your soul.
It's about connecting with something bigger than ourselves. Finding that peace that transcends circumstances.
Exactly. It's not about checking off religious to-dos.
Right.
It's about experiencing God's presence in a profound and transformative way.
I love how Layden frames all of this.
Yeah.
These different types of rest, not as indulgences or luxuries, but really as essential components of a whole and healthy life. He reminds us that rest isn't something we earn.
It's a gift.
It's a gift. It's a state of being
that
we can access.
Yeah.
Through faith, surrender, and a willingness to kind of let go of our striving.
Absolutely.
We're not human doings. We're human beings.
That's good.
And in that being, that state of rest, we can connect more deeply with ourselves, with God and with the world around us.
Absolutely.
And Layden ends with this powerful question.
Oh, yeah.
What are you wrestling with that you should be resting about?
That's so good.
It's so good. It really challenges us to examine the areas in our lives where we're clinging to control, where we're striving and struggling instead of surrendering.
Letting go of the burdens.
Yeah.
Trusting that God is working.
Even in the midst of our resting.
Yes.
That's so good.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on the topic of rest, I encourage you to reflect on that question.
Yeah. What are you wrestling with?
What are you wrestling with that you should be resting about?
Yes.
And how can you invite more rest into your life?
Starting today?
Yes.
Maybe you can discover a new level of peace and wholeness you never knew you needed.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in learning more about Michael Layden and his teachings,
yes,
you can find his series, Seeking Wholeness, on the Unchained Disciples website.
It's a great resource for anyone looking to deepen their understanding of what it means to live a whole and healthy life.
That's a good one.
Oh.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It was fun.
Into the world of rest.
Yes.
We hope you found it insightful, encouraging, and maybe even a little bit challenging.
A little convicting.
Yeah, a little convicting. But remember, rest is not a luxury.
No.
It's essential.
It is.
So go ahead and give yourself permission to rest.
Yes.
You might be surprised at what you discover.